Phenomena.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Phenomena.
welcome to Hypnotic Happenings, where hypnosis happens. Duh. And now help me in welcoming your co-host, award-winning hypnotist, Dan Candell, and Michael DeShalit.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Hypnotic Happenings, where hypnosis happens. Duh. Normally, you'll see Dan Candell on this webinar series with me, but I'm totally unreachable today. I have no idea where he's at. I've tried calling him, texting him, Facebook messaging him. I have no idea where he's at. So you know what? I'm just going to do this without him today. It'll still be Hypnotic Happenings and maybe just Hypnotic Happening. Since he's not here with us today. But I want to get right into it because we have a very, very special guest today. He's a very good friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. We first met at the NGH. He's an NGH certified instructor. He's a great hypnotist. I'm going to let him tell you about his background when he gets started, how he got started in hypnosis. He's got a fascinating story about how he got started in hypnosis. But as far as clinical hypnotists go, I mean, he's a great stage hypnotist, but I will tell you without a doubt, as far as clinical hypnotists go, he's one of the best out there. He really, really practices traditional style hypnosis in as much as he really is good at setting depth with clients. And because of that, he has all kinds of crazy and unusual phenomenon, which is really why we've asked him to be part of this Hypnotic Happenings webinar, because this is about the weird, the wild, the unusual hypnotic phenomenon, things that happen to people. That's the weird, the wild, the unusual during hypnosis sessions. So without a doubt, he is one of the best clinical hypnotists I know, because he is very, very good at what he does. And he's also the founder and person in charge, the CEO, the CHO, the Chief Hypnotic Officer of Heartland Hypnosis Conference. He's going to tell you about that at the end too, but you don't want to miss that. It's a great conference. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my very good friend, Pastor William Mitchell.
Hi, Michael. Yeah, my entire hypnosis career has been weird and wacky, starting from the very beginning.
Yes. Oh, hang on, William. Somebody's at my door.
Okay, all right.
Somebody's at my door. Hang on a second. Let me go see who that is. I'll be right back. Don't go anyplace, everybody.
Geez, it was a long ride from Connecticut.
Was it? Have a seat.
Oh my gosh. William!
Hey, Dan.
Hey!
You're looking well.
I have to say, Michael's been calling me and texting me. I wanted to surprise him. I drove all the way here from Connecticut. Actually, I didn't. I flew on my hypnotic broomstick. With you, my friend.
Would you hit traffic this morning or something? I tried calling you. A little bit. Well, we got Dan Candell here in the house. Actually, we'll kind of, we'll reveal the real truth now. Dan was in town doing some corporate presentations. And so when he's in town, we always try to do something together. And here we are together.
Yeah, last night we went to therapy.
Last night we went to therapy together. So a couple. Kevin Cole was there. Billy and Billy's was there.
It was a whole intervention. It was great.
It was intervention. Actually, a bar downtown. It's called Therapy, and then their nightclub at night is called Relapse. So we got William in the house today, and you knew that, of course. This is just like we practiced this last night in the car. But William, tell us how you got started in hypnosis, because I think, I know there's people out there that do this to this day, but you have the coolest story on how you got started in hypnosis, and you weren't even really a hypnotist.
No, I'm an ordained minister, went through college, then straight through seminary, and was ordained and served churches. And I always had a very strong interest in psychology, and especially the psychology of religion, as well as, of course, in counseling. And but I'd always done a lot of speaking outside the church on psychological topics, a lot around grief recovery, things like that. But I got approached about doing these group seminars, which were quite popular in the 80s and 90s, where they do like stop smoking, weight loss, and this was actually for weight loss. And they decided they liked my speaking ability, so they said, well, we want to train you and hire you, because I knew nothing about hypnosis. I called a psychologist friend of mine who was in the church. He said, oh, hypnosis is great. I use it all the time. It's not a cure-all, but don't be afraid of hypnosis. So they come out and train me, And after just a few days of kind of following them around, and they're doing seminars at night and training me during the day, they said, we think you're ready. You're ready to start doing seminars. I said, well, don't you have to be licensed or certified or something? And they made the sign of the cross, said, you are certified.
Say the training, was that just like a big manual, right? They just gave you a script or something?
Oh, I mean, just gave me a script and was saying, well, here's how you do the credit card machine, and here's how you do this and all that. You know, that was my training. You know? So I never forget. It was in Laredo, Texas, and the big Holiday Inn at the very top was where their meeting room was. And about 60 brave souls came in, not realizing I'd never hypnotized a soul. And so I did my first part of the seminar, and then we take a break, and now it's time for the hypnosis. And so I dim the lights, and I've got my script, I've got my little pen light, and so I start reading the script. And then about 5 minutes of script, I looked out in the audience, and I mean, they are gone. I mean, their heads are down by their knees, arms are hanging down, they're in these chairs. And I'm going, good script. Good script. But what happened was starting right away with these group seminars, at the very end of the seminar, they would do a food aversion. Now, food aversions have been well researched in psychology, but I would do these hypnotic food aversions, and people would throw up, you know, all over themselves during this food aversion. So I called the owner of the company. We had these conference calls, and they're going, "Did you change the script?" And, no, I didn't change the script. And so they were no help because nobody else was getting that same response, and they were all doing the same thing I was doing every night. And so I learned a little bit about hypnosis. The hypnotist defines the boundaries of the hypnotic experience. So before the next seminar, I just got up. I mean, when we got ready to do the food aversion and get ready to do the hypnosis, I said, now, we're going to do this food aversion. We're going to turn the food into something really disgusting, and you won't want to eat that food. So I want everyone to repeat out loud after me. No one will throw up. Everybody starts laughing. I said, no, I'm serious. Repeat after me. No one will throw up. And that stopped it. But if I didn't do that, because I tested it, they would throw up again in other seminars. So I learned you have to define the boundaries in hypnosis. Now, the reason I think after many years of training, I think I was getting that reaction when the other hypnotists weren't, was I was probably someone they trusted. I had that minister thing going on. Although they didn't know I was a minister, I just had that mannerism. And I seemed believable. And these people were getting extreme depth in these group seminars. And as we know, when you get a lot of depth, the person's ability to separate fantasy from reality is diminished greatly. And so when I said the food is covered by live maggots, they really felt like they were covered by live maggots, and they'd start throwing up. So that was a weird and wacky thing.
Are you sure you just weren't exorcising the demons out of them?
Well, there may have been a little of that going on.
This is a perfect example of how two people can say the same exact thing and get two completely different results. And you were actually brought up in our last stage hypnosis training that we did because someone who had seen one of your shows says William Mitchell has this hysterical dating bit. And they started to describe the dating bit. Like, that is really funny. And I'm thinking about it. I said, but if I did it, it would probably come off completely different because people trust you. You're like the dad, where I'm like the wisecracking brother.
Yeah, you're younger.
And I'm younger. If I even recited the same exact pattern, it would play completely different, and I don't think it would go over well for me at all. But two people can say the same exact thing, get two completely different results, completely different responses.
Well, we have a saying in the church that preaching is truth through personality. Well, in hypnosis, you cannot separate the personality of the hypnotist from the experience. There's no way to get around it. And how that person feels about you, the rapport you have or don't have, that all enters in. And let's face it, Michael will create rapport with his funny jokes. I'll create rapport in the way I treat the person a little differently. You'll create rapport in a third, totally different way. You know what I mean? But we got to have that connection, got to have the rapport with the client, because if they don't trust you, nothing's going to happen.
And that's really true. I mean, that's the crux of all. We talk about that in our trainings. I know you talk about it in your trainings too. Right. We both kind of sat in a little bit on each other, doing presentations at Heartland Hypnosis Conference, by the way.
At Heartland Hypnosis Conference.
We'll talk about that later. But that's a little plug for you there, buddy. But listening to how hypnosis really happens, rapport is the first step. Without rapport, there's no trust. Without trust, there's no hypnosis. And I think that's really evident. And watching you do even your stage shows, you do it very systematically and very stepwise. You depth test all the way through. You know, it's very unnoticeable from the audience perspective, but it's but from a hypnotist sitting in the audience, go, wow, he's taking him through every single level of depth and establishing that all the way from the beginning of the show. So you do get great results in your shows. You're not nearly as funny or good looking as I am, but you do.
True. But I am taller.
Dan failed to mention that right now, so I would mention that. But let's talk about some of the crazy stuff that's happened to you in sessions. You were sharing a story with us last night when we were talking on the phone, but which is a story I have not heard yet. And we were dying laughing in the car and laughed actually after we hung up the phone. We're still laughing about it. And we made references to it the whole night long, I think, actually. But you have a couple great stories. But why don't you share the story you shared with us last night, though?
Well, I think it's an example of the hypnosis begins the minute they walk in the room, and actually even begins before that when they first are referred to you or learn about you. So all these things you're doing before you ever have them close their eyes may be seeding or suggesting potential things that will come up in the hypnosis session, particularly when it comes to hypnotic phenomenon. So this lady comes in with her husband. He wants to quit smoking. She wants to lose weight. She turned out to be a professional anthropologist, and she had advanced degrees in anthropology. So to sort of create rapport that I wasn't some uneducated person, I mentioned that Margaret Mead, the great anthropologist, used to film the Bali trance dancers and would come back to the United States and have the famous hypnotherapist, Dr. Milton Erickson, and his wife watch these videos, these films, and they would identify who was in trance and who was just, pretending. And that's well documented both in anthropology as well as in hypnosis literature. And so she knew about that. So we talked about Margaret Mead, and we talked about Milton Erickson. And so she decided to become my client. So the first session, I had one of my other hypnotists work with her. And that hypnotist did say to me after the session, well, she's a little different. But that's all they said, a little different. Okay. We get a lot of people a little different. So then she comes in for her second session, and I'm the hypnotist that's going to work with her. And she comes in and immediately says, I almost didn't come in today. I said, oh, what happened? I thought maybe the other hypnotist had a problem with her. But no, had nothing to do with the first session. We give everyone recordings to play for self-hypnosis when they go home. And she reported to me that every time she plays the self-hypnosis, she would experience dual arm levitation spontaneously, and her arms would move in a slow, methodical, almost dance-like way. And then shortly after, her legs would come up at the same time, both legs. So her hands and her legs are up in the air. She's in a recliner, and they're moving slowly and rhythmically, almost as if to an unheard beat or musical rhythm. And I'm going, oh, really? And I'm just thinking in my mind, I can't wait to put you on a recording and get out of this room, because I have cameras in every room that go to a live monitor so I can see what's going on in all the rooms, because I had other people work for me. And, I'm not only watching the clients, I'm watching the other hypnotists too. I mean, let's face it, it's a real world out there. And so I put her on the recording, I run to the monitor, and sure enough, slowly both hands go up, and they start moving, and then slowly both legs start going up, and they're moving. And so she's leaning back. She's got her legs in the air, hands there, moving back. So I had my cell phone. I called Dr. John Edgett, who will be speaking at Heartland Hypnosis Conference. He's a psychologist, licensed clinical psychologist, and he wrote the book, The Handbook of Hypnotic Phenomenon and Psychotherapy. So I immediately called him up on the cell phone and reported to him what I was seeing on the monitor. And we started talking about the possibilities and everything. But he's kind of excuse the expression, kind of a smart ass. And so at the end of the call, he goes, well, call me back if her butt comes off the chair. She levitates out of the chair. Call me back. So, but every session that she was on a recording, that would happen, whether she was at home or at our office. Now, if she knew I was in the room, or if she knew any of the other hypnotists were in the room, it wouldn't occur, because she could control it. She could stop it because of being self-conscious of somebody being in the room. But if she was alone, now, see, I slipped back in the room because she didn't know I'd slipped in the room. I could be very quiet, and I slipped back in the room, and so I'm observing this while I'm in the room, and then then when the recording ended, her hands came down, her legs came down, and then she opened her eyes. And I immediately tried to normalize this experience for her and said, well, since you're here for weight loss, I know you're going to be successful, because just watching you in these 30 minutes, the amount of calories you burned, you're going to lose weight. I mean, and she did lose weight. And but I tried not to make it weird or spooky or anything for her. And come to find out, the previous hypnosis sessions she'd had with a licensed clinical social worker was they used a lot of Ericksonian arm levitation to test depth. But somehow, I think through the seeding of talking about the Bali trance dancers, Margaret Mead, Milton Erickson, I think somehow she got it suggested in her mind about the trance dancing. And she was trance dancing every session she listened to those recordings. But what I want to point out to you is, on a selfish standpoint, that means she had to have really good hypnotic depth just from listening to my recordings. And a lot of people find it hard to believe that I use a lot of electronic recorded hypnosis in my sessions, but I can show you in many, many ways on video that they go just as deep, if not deeper, with the recording, because sometimes not having the hypnotist in the room is a plus because they're not as self-conscious.
And I think too, just, you mentioned when Milton Erickson was watching the tapes of the dancers, the trance dancers,
yes,
to discern who was in trance and who was not in trance.
Right.
And that's how they would prove who was in trance and who was not in trance. So maybe this is a subconscious validation for herself to prove that she was actually hypnotized.
Could have been.
Certainly, and we don't always have to go for proof, but certainly this is a way of proving that she did achieve, all kinds of different levels of depth there too.
Right.
So to our listeners, pay attention to this stuff. And William mentioned a book. What's the name of that book again?
The Handbook of Hypnotic Phenomenon and Psychotherapy by Dr. John Edgett. Dr. John Edgett. He'll be speaking at Heartland this year. And he also wrote Winning the Mind Game, which is hypnosis and sports psychology for athletes. But John's very knowledgeable, and he's very Ericksonian in his approach to hypnosis. But from a clinical standpoint, it's a wonderful book. I use it all the time. I use it part of my training, actually.
Make sure you don't schedule my presentation the same time as his, because I want to go to his presentation.
Okay, we'll do that.
So you also had another story too, and this is one of my favorite stories because you do a presentation often at conventions, and you talk about hypnotic phenomenon, and so you show a video. Now we don't have the capability of doing that here in this, but I don't want to, even if we could, because I want people to come to your presentations and see that. You talk about this smoker that you have. Client and this lady, to set the stage for you, I want to introduce this little talk here that William's going to do. This lady, a number of years ago, there was a viral video that went out, and there's this African American lady, and she was being interviewed on a news station, and then they made a song out of her interview, and it was "Ain't Nobody Got Time for That." And so she was talking about a fire in her apartment complex. She said, "I smell smoke." She goes, "I woke up, come downstairs, get me a cold pop. And I smelled smoke, and I said, Lord Jesus, that must be a fire. Said, ain't nobody time for that. And so they made a song out of it. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. But this lady, when you hear her and watch her in your video, she reminds me of that lady. And she was very flamboyant in her argument that she was not in hypnosis. Right. But again, you use depth testing and you use phenomenon to show her that she was. So tell us that story, if you would.
Well, this wonderful lady came in, quit smoking. She smoked for 48 years. And so anyway, I explained to everyone, when you're hypnotized, you look asleep, but you never feel asleep. You'll always hear what I'm saying, because if you can't hear me, I can't help you. And so she didn't pay attention or didn't remember that or didn't believe that. And so at the end of the session, I always ask people, if they're a smoker, do you want to throw your cigarettes away? And most of the time, 90% of the time, yes, they want to throw the cigarettes away, they throw them away. But she didn't want to throw her cigarettes away. Well, she was very polite, but I knew that meant she didn't think she was hypnotized. So she goes home. And so the next morning at 9 o'clock when I'm opening the door, she was already at my door waiting to get in to talk to me, because she'd gone home and she'd taken a cigarette and she'd gotten it lit. I don't know how she got it lit, but once she got it lit, then she couldn't get it to her mouth. It wouldn't go to her mouth. It would go everywhere else, wouldn't go to her mouth. She tried to take both hands and force it, but her head would go back. So she thought, I'll take my head down to the cigarette, but then her hand would go down, see? So she could not get the cigarette to her mouth. Now, that's actually an old stage hypnosis routine where they say you have a drinking problem and you can't get the water into your mouth. And you've seen stage hypnotists do that before. And it's usually at a state fair, and it's 100 degrees out, and they're pouring water all over themselves, and it's pretty funny. But we did it with the cigarettes. She couldn't get the cigarette in her mouth. Now, she had many other hypnotic phenomena occur in the same session, and she was really a wonderful hypnotic subject. And of course, you can't separate the good subject from the depth, because some people more easily go to that depth than others. But I think it's interesting. She was absolutely convinced she was not hypnotized. She goes, because I could hear you. And how many clients report the same thing to their friends or their family? They go, well, he just talked to me. I really wasn't hypnotized. I could hear everything he said. And yet, in truth, they've had actually some very good hypnotic suggestions that may be working. I had a very wealthy gentleman here in town come. I'd helped a couple of his employees quit smoking, so he came for weight loss. And, of course, he has a lot of money. He's very successful. And I think it was important for his ego to think he could not be hypnotized. Does that make sense? So he'd come in every session, and he'd say, oh, it's just not working, blah, blah. But of course he'd say, I haven't been eating any chocolate, and I haven't done, and I've been cutting but it really hasn't been working because I'm really not getting hypnotized. Of course, what it was, every suggestion I was giving him was taking root and was actually unconsciously working without him having to make conscious effort that it would work. And so he did lose weight, but he never gave me the credit. It's because he was working out a lot.
William, I want to jump in here for 1 second. I do want to make a small interjection here too, because you said something earlier when you were talking about stepping out of the room and watching a video monitor and all that.
Yes.
I want to mention this to our viewing audience because Dan and I are known for being a little bit controversial, maybe, I guess, in launching even this webinar series. We've had some controversial stories where people actually complained. They said, you're talking about clients and all that stuff that's confidential, and you're talking about a video, and you get permission to video record your session.
Oh yes, written permission.
Yes, yeah, written permission. And so I just want to make that clear to our viewers that we're not sharing information that is going to compromise the integrity or the confidentiality of our clients.
Well, and by the way, the African American lady couldn't get the cigarette in her mouth. You can see that video on my website or my clinic website, but she has given permission. She's seen the video. I mean, we would never, ever reveal the confidential identity of some of these people. Like I was talking about this very wealthy person, I would never tell you who that was. He's very well known in the community. So no, would never reveal that.
Lady, you couldn't pay that lady enough money to have her video on your website. As a matter of fact, I'm going to figure out how to steal that video off your website. I'm going to put it on my website.
Actually,
that good of a video.
When you and Tommy V were in my talk and first saw that, your initial reaction, you probably don't remember this, was, how much did you have to pay her? I said, no, you understand. They pay me.
I'll be a cater to use that video. Yes. Because she was really, really funny, really comical. So
and she has never smoked since. She's never smoked since.
And to all of our viewers out home that are watching this, here's the thing. If you're not getting the results that you're looking for in your sessions, and you've been doing this for a while, it's easy to get apathetic. It's easy to get a little lazy and not depth test or do any kind of testing at all, especially in the clinical area. And even in the stage, you and I have very different shows, and Dan has an entirely different show too, but we have very different styles. But in all of the work that we do, we all still do some sort of depth testing, whether it's very formal or whether it's informal, because that helps us to validate the hypnotic experience. So in closing, before we really promote Heartland Hypnosis Conference, in closing, what would be some tidbits of advice, something like that you would share with anybody that's watching this video?
As far as depth testing, well, one thing I make in my shows, like you said, I've got it structured so we start with light and then move to medium, and then you don't do the really deep stuff until the end. And now what I've done with that many times, and I did state fair training that you attended, I will tell people, if you want to lose weight or stop smoking, be in the show, because the depth testing drives you deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Depth testing will drive you deeper. And so if you're in the show and you make it all the way to the end, then when I reinduce hypnosis with the reinduction transfer quickly, you're very responsive. Remember the great big guy, and he was in Salish's show? I pre-hypnotized him before the show, and then I told him, be in the show, and then when you come off stage, I'll do stop smoking with you real quickly. And if you recall, that was on Sunday, and he called on Thursday, and he still hadn't smoked.
Right, and his wife was mad too, because
she didn't want him to quit smoking.
Show too, but she had been little bit drinky.
Yeah. I hope that's all she was doing. Anyway,
she was a little bit longer than he was that day, and she was mad because he stopped smoking and she wanted to quit smoking too. And I think, did you ever get her as a client, by the way?
No. If you recall, she didn't want to quit smoking, and she thought it would ruin her relationship because now he was going to quit smoking.
That's right.
She did not want to quit smoking.
Yeah.
Michael and I were talking. We had a discussion the last time we were teaching here about hypnosis has a formula to it, and especially stage hypnosis. There's a formulaic way to doing it that we stick to the formula because it works. And we don't divert from that formula. And there are steps that fall into place and need to fall into place with shows, with our clients. Depth testing is part of that. And we've both seen some pretty awful shows where things just totally fell apart because people mess with the formula.
Yep.
They mess with the formula. And there's a reason why we do this and this and this and this, and then ask for volunteers. And ask for volunteers, and then we do this and this and this and this with those volunteers. And one of the most important parts of that is the pre-talk, which really sets the stage. And we have seen some shows that could have been amazing absolutely crumble.
Oh yeah.
I got to tell you guys, one of my best students and now great friend and colleague attended your most recent training, and he got so much out of the things you're talking about how you do the pre-talk, all that stuff. And of course, he came back and started telling me all this, and I'm going, I told you that. But the way you did it, the way you presented it, really made an impression on him. He thought it was great. And he said, I'm going to change my show and all that stuff. So you're doing some good work on that, because I had told him the same thing, but he missed it.
And I want to introduce this concept because not many hypnosis conferences teach a lot about stage hypnosis.
Right.
And I find that is a huge gap in the hypnosis conference industry, because now there's so many conferences out there. People want to know, which ones do we go to? And we find that usually there's not a variety of choices. It's usually all clinical. There's very little stage hypnosis. And that's one thing I really, really enjoy. And of course, I attended and spoke at Heartland Hypnosis Conference one time, and the reason being it was only one time is because every year it falls on a weekend where I have a whole crap ton of shows myself back east. But the one thing I really enjoyed, and there's many things I enjoyed about it, but you have a stage hypnosis track.
Yeah.
Different tracks in the Heartland Hypnosis Conference. Can you explain about that a little bit? So,
like you, I go to a lot of conferences because I always want to learn more. And here's what I tell people: you don't have to go to my conference. Go to conferences, because we all need to keep our learning and keep adding to it. And it's like all those horror movies. It's always that scientist who's isolated who turns into the creator of Frankenstein. You want to have colleagues that you interact with, get these stories and get these great learnings from. But when I go to these conferences, one, like you say, there's a deficit of people teaching about stage hypnosis at those conferences. And in stage hypnosis, whether we like it or not, the true ambassadors to the public about hypnosis are stage hypnotists. So stage hypnotists need to do their work very well, very ethically, and also do it in such a way that they are also maybe doing a little teaching either before, after, even during the show. Because so many people come to my office, they go, well, I saw this after prom, and man, I could tell it was real. I guess I'll see if it can help me lose weight or stop smoking, whatever they came in for. So, stage hypnosis is important. So if you're just interested in stage, we have 3 days of nothing but stage hypnosis classes. That's it. And let me tell you, the first year we did Heartland, of course, Michael DeShalen's part of the reason. They were having so much fun in the stage class, they were stealing people away from the clinical track because they could hear them laughing so loud, and everybody's cramming into the stage class. It's like how many clowns can you put in a Volkswagen? So we gave them this really little room. People were out in the hall trying to get in the room. So we had to get the stage class a little bigger space, but we also have the clinical track, because there are a lot of people, they don't like stage hypnosis. They don't think stage hypnosis is valid, and so they can spend all 3 days in the clinical track and never leave and never have to see a stage hypnotist or hear about stage hypnosis, but they're at the same location. Now, I think it's very healthy to have this cross-fertilization. I think it's very healthy that some stage hypnotists who really have very little clinical training to get a little clinical training. I think it's very healthy for clinical hypnotists to learn that what's happening on stage really is hypnosis. Because you wouldn't believe how many of my clients have gone to clinical hypnotists. They say, well, what about these stage shows? And they'll say, oh, that's fake. That's not real. That's fake. That's not hypnosis. I can't believe how many clinical people actually give that answer. And of course, my response when a client tells you that says, well, I said, well, let me tell you, it really is hypnosis on stage. And if you can get that deep, you can do some amazing things clinically. Amazing things.
Yeah, and
so,
last year you had Anthony Gailey as a keynote speaker and also did the stage show.
Yes.
Which, and again, I've had Anthony Gailey as a speaker at my stage hypnosis conference. And when Tommy and I, when we hosted that, Tommy V and I, when we hosted that, we actually called Anthony and said, hey, how would you like to be a speaker at our stage hypnosis conference? And he said, I'm not really a stage hypnotist. I'm like, what do you mean you're not a stage hypnotist? You're more of a stage hypnotist than anybody else that I know of. And yet last year he revealed like a new premise about hypnosis. And I told you this there, and I'll tell our viewers this. If you get a chance to watch that, this took place at Heartland last year. I literally was sitting in the front row, and Anthony asked me to video record it for him, so I did. And I will tell you that history was made. History was made there at Heartland Hypnosis Conference last year. I am a firm believer that next year, or not next year, but in years to come, we're going to see Anthony Gailey's name as prominent as all the other greats that are in our past history.
Well, I can say you were prophetic there, Michael, because it's currently being considered and a proposal is being made to get the funding for a major study at a major institution. I can't say any more about it. Anthony's told me about it, but I said that would be great for you to come back in 2021 and give us the follow-up, because I'm like you. I think we made history that day. Anthony Gailey made history, and we got to witness it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this year you have as a show this year, you're going to have somebody coming in this year. Tell us who that's going to be.
Paul Ramsey. And Paul's big in the Epsiode hypnotist, but he's also pretty big on the college circuit, which in stage hypnosis, there are niches. There are fairs, there are cruise lines, there's corporate shows, and there's the college market. And Paul has kind of carved out a neat little niche in the college market, because several years ago, he was doing college shows, but he wasn't doing as many as he wanted to. So he met with his agent and said, I'd like to do more college shows. And the agent basically just said, look, your show's just not that special. That was hard to hear. Your show's just not that special. So Paul went back and figured out a way to make his show special by adding electronics where the people in the audience can actually participate and help choose which skits are used on stage, et cetera, et cetera. And he's going to do that at our Friday night show at Heartland. But I think he's made an impact, because I know personally several stage hypnotists in the college market have stolen his idea and changed a little bit, and they're doing that with great success now. So he was on something, but it all started with the agent saying, your show really isn't that special. And after you get to a certain level, the first level is you just want to be competent and do a decent show. And I tell my trainees, don't try to be unique and interesting and different from everybody else to your first show. Just do a decent show. Be competent first. Then figure out how you're unique and how you can do something special. But first get down how to do it, and then you can make those changes. But there does come a point where you kind of have to have your persona, what's unique about your show, who your market is. You guys up there are great stage hypnotists, and you have your markets. I have my market, but my market is slightly different than your market because of my background. Yours is slightly different because of your background. And so the person that's going to hire Dan Candell and get really excited about Dan's show may not want to hire me, but the person who hires me may not be excited about Dan Candell and hire him. Now, it's not because Dan does a bad show. It's not even because he's a bad person. But we have different approaches. We're many years difference in age, for one thing, and have all those other differences that we have in personality. Now, the reason they would hire me over Michael DeShaw, of course, is my good looks.
Goes without saying. I mean, really, take it to the moment, folks. This is it right here.
The reason why is because I do X-rated shows for middle schoolers.
That's true. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And this is, and it's fun. This is, I love doing these webinars because this is so much fun, especially this one because, you run a conference, I've run a conference, you've been a speaker at my conference. I've been a speaker at your conference many times.
Every year.
every year.
I feel left out. Should I start running a conference?
You should.
Almost every other hypnotist has.
I should run my own
So
conference.
Dan Candell, you need to run a conference.
Actually, you're young enough, Dan. You're young enough, Dan. You can take mine over when I retire. So
I do not want to run a conference anymore, for the record. So it's all on you, William. So, but it's just fun though, because we are truly, in reality, we are competitors, but we don't look at it that way.
no,
We serve each other, we help each other be prosperous, and that's the beauty of all this. And you mentioned this too. You don't even need to come to Heartland; just go to conferences in general. I support as many conferences as I can every year.
Right.
And it was actually at your conference 2 years ago that I met Joanne, who was running the Canadian Hypnosis Conference.
Yes.
She hired me to come and do her show at her conference.
Right.
And so, it's because of going to your conference that led me to go to other conferences. And so I think that's important for people to know that there's choices out there, but you're going to find different things that are applicable at different conferences. Like yours, you've got the different tracks. You've got, the clinical track, the business track, the stage track, the metaphysical track, and you've got, just a plethora of classes offered in each and every one of those. You can stay in one track the whole time, or you can spread yourself out in other tracks. And that's the beauty of it.
and we really promote hypnosis without walls, which I stole that idea from Richard Nongard. But on Friday, we offer mental health continuing education units to licensed professionals. And that is a draw. So on Friday, you'll have a lot of licensed people in the crowd. Now, the metaphysical track, they have found their tribe. I mean, they are there. They're ethical. They're good practitioners, but they're using techniques that the American Psychological Association would not give continuing education units for. So those people go on the metaphysical track. Very good practitioners and very ethical, because we do vet everyone. We do research them. And believe me, some people go, oh, he'll take anybody. That is not true. Believe me, I have turned people down, and I could tell you talk about weird stuff. I could tell you some horror stories about what people made proposals to present at my conference that I got to turn down. I mean, if it wouldn't gross you out, I would tell you right now.
Well, you've had, and I'm part of your review committee. I think at some point, we always talk about who you should have, and I'm happy to be a part of that, because it's true. You maintain the integrity and the ethics of the profession, and that's super important. So tell us the importance, the nuts and bolts about Heartland. How do people sign up? Because there's still time to do that, and it's in April. And I got to tell you, you're making leaps and bounds this year too. We've outgrown the hotel. And I say we because I take ownership to this conference.
Oh, you're a part of it. Yeah.
It is, this I've been since the very beginning. This is year, 6 now?
This is our 6th year.
Sixth year. And,
this is our 6th year.
And we've outgrown the hotel that we were at before. And now you're going to downtown St. Louis?
Yes, downtown St. Louis. We had a wonderful facility out in the suburbs, and it was very inexpensive, but it was a little tight but it was okay, because the first couple of years weren't that many people, but now there are more and more people coming. And so now we're at the downtown Holiday Inn at the convention center, and it's a very nice hotel, plenty of room, lovely meeting rooms, lovely facilities. We always have lunch together, which is really cool. All the speakers and all the presenters are having lunch together. It's supplied by the conference. When you pay your registration, it pays for lunch, and that makes for some wonderful time of sharing. But you can go online. It's just the name of the conference, Heart, like your heart, Land, because we're right in the middle of the United States in St. Louis, Heartland Hypnosis Conference. We're not a convention. We're not a membership organization. We're just a conference.com. So Heartland Hypnosis Conference.com. I know it's a mouthful, but if you'll go on there, you can see all kinds of videos. You can see who's presenting, and you can certainly register. And if you get in before this weekend, you can actually get the early bird special price, and that's much, much cheaper than paying the full price of $450. So if you register this weekend, it'd be $300. But I hope that you'll consider coming. Michael's been a great part. I appreciate Dan coming to be with us one year. I understand, Dan, I had a very prominent stage hypnotist last year go, how can one of the premier hypnosis conferences, put the right in the middle of all the stage shows? And I said, well, that's because we give all our stage hypnotists stage shows to do. This year, he's speaking at our conference.
So I want to say too, William, when I went to your conference, and I'm really going to be diligent to see if I can go next year and block off that weekend. When I went to your conference, I met people that, and not to toot my own horn, but when I go to hypnosis conferences, people know who I am. I went to your conference, Nobody knew me.
Nobody knew you.
Which was awesome. And
Yeah.
people were saying, and who are you? And then they came to my presentation, and I met so many people that I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to meet. And so many people met me and it's just the opportunity of going and being with your tribe, of getting off that island, which is what Hypnotic Happenings is all about, to commiserate, to learn with one another, to pull resources together, and to continue that education to make ourselves better hypnotists, better resources for one another, and also better business professionals, because that's exactly what we are. And sometimes people forget about that. So I'm really happy that you have the business track, because that is so important for people to know.
Well, thank you, Dan. And I want to say real quick, on the business track, all the time, either both in the clinical side and on the stage hypnosis side, I get these younger hypnotists, many of whom I've trained, many of whom I haven't trained, come to me and they say, I'm just not making enough money. I said, well, quit taking all the rapid induction courses and get your butt over into the business track, because you do have to have a business model, because you're in business for yourself. And it's just like today, the one reason I have the tie on is because I knew I didn't have to wear a tie for you guys.
But you didn't have to wear pants, so we thank you for wearing. I know you're not wearing pants right now, so that's your choice. You do you, my friend. Do you, Pookie? It's okay.
Yeah, but today, this afternoon, I've got 5 new, never met me before clients coming in, and of course, we want to present a professional impression here. So when I meet new clients, I usually have a jacket on, usually have a tie on. And because a lot of people think hypnosis here is weird, wacky, occult, things like that. And of course, we're trying to say very clearly, we're in the mainstream. This is a mainstream alternative medical approach that you can use without any side effects, without any adverse effects, and it's very safe. And in the hands of a true professional like both of you and hopefully myself, it's not only safe, it's extremely effective and beneficial.
That's right. So before we close, heartlandhypnosisconference.com. Heartlandhypnosisconference.com. And when is the cutoff for registration this weekend?
Well, the early bird ends this weekend, but you can still register all the way up to the day of the conference. It's April 24th through 26th, the last weekend of April 2020. And it's an annual event. And just like Dan said, you'll meet people you won't meet anywhere else, because we have people that only come to our conference. They don't go to HypnoThoughts. They don't go to Nash Guild of Hypnotists. They don't go anywhere else. But by the same token, we have a lot of people, if you do go to those conferences, that you'll recognize and know as well. So it's a nice mix of people who kind of make the circuit, so to speak, and people who could care less about the circuit.
and it's small enough yet effective enough. It's about 150 to 200 people or so, I'd say.
Yeah, last year we hit right at 200, and so we're hoping to do that again this year. And I'm excited. We've got as good an offering this year as we've ever had, and we just need to get the word out. I've had some personal things going on in my life this year. My father died. I've had some other things going on. I took a new church, and just this morning we had a little church crisis I had to deal with at 8:15. But so I'm always wearing different hats, and or maybe yarmulkes. But anyway, but the point is, we're getting organized, and we're still going to be doing a lot of marketing the next 2 months to get people out. Because you wouldn't believe how many people go to conferences, wait till the last 3 weeks just when they can still get that flight to get there with the 2-week bonus. That's all.
Now's your chance to save $150 by registering today. Register now. Register. Do it now. Do it before the end of this weekend so you can get on that early bird pricing. Otherwise, you're going to pay more money. It is great. It's in downtown St. Louis. It's in walking distance to the Arch, I'm guessing, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah, you can walk the Arch.
And there's some barbecue restaurants down there, too.
Oh, yeah, and we're right off Washington Street, which is a major, all kinds of cool restaurants. It's kind of the place now to go, downtown St. Louis, Washington Street. It's really cool. And we're just a block away. So it's going to be fun. Although you don't have to leave the hotel to have a great time. I mean, we're going to have a great time there.
Oh, yeah. And most likely we won't, because it'll be so much fun inside the hotel. We're going to take over that place. So thanks again for joining us, William. And heartlandhypnosisconference.com. Sign up now. It's going to be a blast. You don't want to miss it. Be there. Come support hypnosis. Come support yourself. Invest in yourself and your business, and come to this conference.
Let me say it one more time. My student, who's an outstanding student, loved your training.
Thank you.
Loved your training.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Loves your training. And part of me goes, well, I may have said it before, but he wasn't ready to hear it. But the way you said it, he got it.
You know what? And that's why going back to us being competitors when we're not competitors. Here's the thing. we always tell our students, take as many trainings as you can, go to as many conferences as you can, because sometimes you hear it differently, and it makes an impact on you, where even though you've heard it 10 times before. So just never stop learning, never stop going to conferences and supporting each other and all that. So, all right, William. Now I get
Hey, guys, I really am grateful you had me on your show. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. All right. So Dan's going to drive back to Connecticut now. And
be well, do good. Be true to who you are, people.
if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room.